Hi there, it's Catherine, and welcome to my weekly reflections. And I'm so glad to be here with you. Just noticed my glasses are glaring, but it's all right because I want to read something to you today. Um, I just came across this, and I've had a really good, quiet weekend. I've done a meditation retreat this weekend that ended this morning around 9. And so I'm still a little bit on that meditation, calm and quiet. But the first thing that I picked up, I often will do a random selection just to see and sort of reflect on it. So here it is. If you woke up tomorrow completely healed, who would you be? Let me say that again. If you woke up tomorrow completely healed, who would you be? Um, so I'm going to read, there's a commentary that goes along with this. It's a book called Ceremony. It's, the kind of book that you just, here it is. Oops. Ah, here it is, Ceremony by Brianna West. um, that you do this random selections. At least that's what I do. It's how I do it. And the losses of our lives appear on the surface as abandonment and failures, but are in truth often entryways to the deepest and most powerful periods of personal growth and moments at which we release the life we choose unconsciously and begin to decide who we really want to be. I'm going to read it one more time because this for me it was so powerful that I decided to share it with you. If you woke up tomorrow completely healed, who would you be? The losses of our lives appear on the surface as abandonment and failures, but are in truth often entryways to the deepest and most powerful periods of personal growth. The moments at which we release the life we choose unconsciously and begin to decide who we really want to be. So I didn't plan this life that I'm living. I didn't necessarily want to live the life that I'm living. Um, a number of years ago, when my body started to behave without explanation, and things that I was doing were not working, and I was progressing, and no one could tell me what it was. And when I finally found out that lymphedema was only part of it, that the rest of it was something called lipedema, and that very few people knew about it, and that my doctor, one, my surgeon didn't want to know about it, my primary care did, but still didn't know what to do, set me off on a journey. And when I think in terms of if I woke up tomorrow and I were healed, who would I be? So much of my life is around managing, managing. There's a pump and there's a vibration plate and there's Epsom salt, immersion. I do immersion baths in Epsom salts and walking and physical therapy and keto. And I go in and out. I do a lot of fasting. I do intermittent fasting. I do alternate day fasting. And I go in and out of periods of carnivore. I mean, it's a list. Who would I be if I wasn't doing that? If that wasn't how my life has evolved? But here's the flip side of it. Who would I be if I weren't so determined that I found people who knew about lipedema. Who would I be if I wasn't having support groups, sharing all of what I've learned, holding someone's hand, asking someone to hold my hand, and being a part of a community which is filled with love and compassion, and learning day in and day out what self-compassion means. It was a hell of a week. It's one of the toughest weeks that I've had in longer than I can remember. Not for bad reasons, but for exactly the opposite, for good reasons. I had um, uh, I did a presentation that was spectacular, that led to a conversation which is very, very exciting. Um, and I collapsed the day after, after it settled. Uh, when it finally settled that I had stepped into the place that I aspired, that I had stepped into the place where I could clearly share what is important to me. It of course it has to do with lipedema and getting support for the lipedema community is the bottom line of what it was. I went into, I went into a spiral. I'm laughing because I meditated all weekend. I did a weekend retreat and I came back to center. That's for me. That really is a lot of how we develop the model of the holistic approach, because physical, mental, psychological, emotional, social, spiritual. For me, the spirituality is get centered, Catherine. Focus, Catherine. Be here, Catherine, in this moment, and the rest will take care of itself. And so I did something that I haven't done, and I can't remember how long, literally years, but I had a binge because it's old behavior. It's old behavior. And I recall so many times in my life where when I'm teeter tottering on an edge, that edge, I'll slip and slide. And all the work that we've done, all of the work that we've done around self compassion, first and foremost, it just deepens. And that self compassion is what I invited into my awareness this week. I was watching a video from Kristen Neff, who wrote all her research is on self compassion. And she was at Google. She was doing one of the authors at Google series, which is fabulous. If you've never seen it, watch it. But all kinds of authors, they bring everybody in because they're Google. But she said, take your hands and just put them over your heart like this. Can you see? Just like this, one over the other. So fascinating how much comfort that brought me this week. Well, the last few days, really, because this all happened like Tuesday and Wednesday. And I think that's at the core is self-compassion first and then maturity. Self-compassion first and then maturity. So having lymphedema, struggling with obesity no matter what I do, and dealing with all kinds of comorbidities as I'm aging that are showing up, what would I do differently? Wouldn't. So I'm going to read it again. from the book, my reflection. If you woke up tomorrow completely healed, who would you be? If I wake up tomorrow completely healed, who will I be? I'll probably be the same, but just the concept, just living with this, just holding it as a possibility. One of the things that I saw for myself, and I just share this with you because it's my own process, is binging is a behavior that I haven't done in years. Now, number one, I'm so well trained. There was nothing that wasn't keto. It's just that I ate too much of it. That's so funny. I'm like, no, I can't have that. It has sugar. No, I can't have that. It's flour. So keeping it in a very narrow road, you can still binge. And sort of being able to laugh at it. I remember there was a movie that was very impactful for me. Um, I can't remember the name of it, but the story was of this young couple whose child was autistic. And they really, really, they took the child. This is going back, I think it was the movie is from the 80s. Um, anyway, they took the child. The name will come to me. They took the child, a young boy. This is a true story, by the way. They took him to a um, like a hospital where the treatment was horrific. The treatment is like part of autism, depending on where someone is on the spectrum. There can be very intense tantrums and out of control. And so in the hospital, what they would do is they would strap the kids in to prevent them from hurting themselves or anyone else. And it was so horrific for the parents that they took the kid out and said, and the woman said, I'm just going to give him love. I'm just going to give him love and do everything that he does. And so she began her own treatment plan, and they would spend days, entire days with the kid. And the kid was severely autistic. He was spinning a plate, just sit there and spin a plate. And the mother would sit there and spin a plate. And this went on for a long time. And that wasn't the only thing. There were many other things that they did, but they wanted the kid to feel safe, that he was seen, that he was heard, that he was embraced. And uh, and he got well. And then he had a relapse. Um, he went from coming out of autism and then overnight, he just went under and he went back to his old behavior, and they were crushed. They were totally devastated. And then the mother said, we'll start again. And he came out of it and never went back. It's a true story. I have to find it. I'll put it in the chat. Lorenzo's oil is also really good, Susie. And that's another one of my favorite ones. And I'll tell the Lorenzo oil story next week. But it so that movie always struck me because it's my experience as I heal, as I continue to discover and explore what for me is the hardest place. It's not, the pump, the vibration plate, the baths. What's hard for me is the self compassion, the self forgiveness, and the self love. And that's the place that I keep exploring with you. Thank you for allowing me to do this. Thank you for being part of this conversation. Because it's a conversation, I have to say we have our symposium coming up in April, the end of April. And after that, I'm going to be delving way more into all of these issues. You know, it's a funny thing, but for me, I've found when the physical is in place, then I can go into all the rest, because it's when the physical for me is wonky. It's hard for me to be honest with myself and go into the depths that the work that involves self-love and self-acceptance requires. It definitely requires a deeper level of self-presence. As my friend Susie says, smart Suzanne. Yes, with her, the work that she has shared with us on being present. So, thank you all for joining me. This is Catherine signing off for this week, and I hope to see you at one of our events this week, and definitely at the symposium, and hopefully next week. Wishing you a wonderful and blessed week. Bye.